learning a block Gemara. Today's daf is daf Tezayin or Aleph. We already learned more than I learned the whole year when I was yeshiva, and so it deserves a celebration. What can I say? Waking up for it now. Trying to. Okay, we're up to near the bottom of the page by the two dots, and basically the Mishnah gives us a number of cases where you have not brought the get properly. Now that we made a takana that you have to say before nine nechtav, if you don't say all of it or only part of it, we said that since you didn't follow Chachamim, it's not effective. So says the Gemara. Now we're focusing on the last part of the Mishnah. What the last part of the Mishnah says is that we have two stances. One is if one person said before nine nechtav and another person said before nine nechtam, possible. So we read it's possible. Why is it possible? Because one person is the way we're learning simple pshat. One person is here as a shliach, and one person is here as an aid. So therefore, the shliach didn't do the full job, and you can't have half and half. What happens if two people say b'faneinu nechtav and one person says b'faneinu nechtav? It's still possible. Again, the same reason. One person is here as a shliach, and then you're working as aidim. Even though it's two aidim, it doesn't work. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it is kosher. Because the fact is, you have two Eidim, as we'll see. Yehuda says, since you have one person saying B'nai Nechta, and we don't really need the Shema. The only reason why we have the Shema is to distinguish this star from all other stars. But if you have two Eidim that say that before Nechta, it already distinguishes itself from all other stars, good enough. So the way we're learning Parshat Pshat is, it's one Shliach. What would be if both of them would have been appointed as Shluchim? Then it would be effective. It would be effective because you have two shluchim over here. They're both shluchim, and you have, if it's worried about answer the kaima, they're both available. It would be all right. But we're talking about was only one of them is a shlich. That's the posh of shot. But in the Gemara, there might be another way of learning Mishnah as well. Says the Gemara, what are we talking about here? When does the Mishnah disqualify this get? Ella, because the shliach she'ein haget yotzei medachar name. They're not both shluchim. Only one of them is a shliach. So one is a shliach for either nechtam and nechtam, and the other one is merely here as an eid echad. So so the shliach did not do his job properly. And you want to give the credibility of two aidim to this single shliach. You can't do that. One of them is an aid. No, if one guy says, you're talking about the last case. Right now we're talking about the case where one person says nechtav, one person says nechtam. So there's two people. Then the next case is one person says nechtav, and sorry, one person nechtam, and two people say nechtav. There are three different people, yeah? Three people, yeah. Otherwise, like we had yesterday, that he was alone, and because he added somebody, Kalamoisif, Abel, get Yitzim Etachadish name. But if both of them are holding on to this get, and they're both coming forward, and they're both shluchim, then kosher. It is kosher. Why is it kosher? I didn't say correctly before nechtam, because since the main thing is kiyum status, and here's very different. When do you have to have two people coming, two people coming at all? And the whole reason why you have to say it because ain't Eidim it's in the Kaima. Here you have two people coming forward, you have your Eidim. According to Rashi, they'll be the Eidim, and Tesher the base says what ought to be kippah. You keep them in a jail or something. It means now that these two shluchim came forward and told the Bezin that the husband appointed us as a shliach, we won't believe the husband to say that it's not true because the two people saying you appointed them as a shliach. So therefore it's Eidim it's in the Kaima here. What's the problem? Yeah. Says the Gemara further, Alma, what was he for me? Ksava, behold, Shnayim, Shehivi, give Miziyam, but two people would give Miziyam. Ain't sicher she we don't even have to say Vanei Nechta Vanei. You're right, you didn't say correctly. You know what? We don't care because you say nothing. If two shluchim were sent by him, when you say Vanei Nechta, when you only one shliach, you want to give this person the credibility of two, so you have to be, other magic duck. But over here, you have two shluchim. You have the two agents right here. What do you need to say anything for? The problem is Eidim Shel Kaima. We have them right here. According to this, so say for the next case, which talks about two people, that's talking about the case of one person and one person. So the next case, which says this case we had two people in total. The next case is three. If two people say before nechtav, and one of them before nechtav possible, it's possible. And Rabbi Yehuda's machshir timer, according to you again. The way you're reading the Mishnah is the reason why it's possible is because they only have one shliach. But if they would all been shluchim, it would be kosher. Time with the machine get time with the get the only reason why it's possible is because there's only one shliach and he didn't do it correctly. Oh, get but if the get taka would have come out from all of these people. Is that true? I'm like, yes, you're 100% right. Exactly what we said before. Before we had two people and we said that the Rosh Shluchim was good. So the safer when you have three people, the Rosh Shluchim, or two of them are Shluchim, definitely good. Same thing. So that's the question. So you're telling me the whole case talking about the get is not going, is only one of them the Shliach. So why tax the Bidul kosher? Please. I understand why the Chacham is not kosher. There's only one Shliach and you didn't do your job correctly. You didn't say for Nechtav. But Rabbi Yehuda's machshir. In this case here, we have two Eidim and one Eid. Two Eidim for Podanechtav and one for Podanechtav. Why is he whole kosher? The fact is that the Shliach did not do his job properly. And we're going to make him, if we accept the Podanechtav, we might make a mistake with other starters and accept it as well. Just one Eid singly coming along. It's very simple. The Chachamim say that even though there are two Eidim and Podanechtav, since there's only one by funny nechtam, we are going to think that one aid is sufficient for a nechtam, and all starters we're going to say one aid is enough. And Abiyuda argues, since even though it's not him, but two other aidim came forward and said the funny nechtam already demonstrates that this get is different than all other contracts. So we're not going to make that mistake. Marsov, I guess we worry. We're going to think that all starters think that's good enough. Marsov, like us, we're not going to be good. We're not going to go because you already showed that it's different. The fact that you have two people coming along saying for a nechtav. Says the Gemara. Okay, listen, that's one version. That's the posture of the Mishnah. There's another version of Mishnah. I feel get yotzim betachis they shnei possible. That even if both of them are shluchim, if one is doing it for a nechtav and one is doing it for a nechtav, it is possible. Why? Because he didn't do correctly. But the first opinion says if two people bring it, they don't have to say anything. Who cares? They say nothing because you have your two Eidim right here. And all we care about is the chesima, and all we have about two Eidim right here. Or they both tell the shluchim. The second version is, as Gemara explained, maybe we're also worried about lishma. So we need them to say that before nechtav, and they didn't say it properly. One said before nechtav and one said before nechtav. So even two people were appointed as shluchim, it's still possible again. Even if both of them were shluchim, possible. Why? Alma, what if even mehr? Kasava, the whole shnayim shehevi get niziyam. Two people get niziyam. Srichin sheyemru b'fanenu nechtav b'fanenu. They still have to say fanenu nechtav fanenu nechtav. And since they didn't, you didn't have one either shliach saying the entire b'fanenu nechtav and nechtav. Therefore, it is possible. And we're worried. More than that, we're worried not only didn't do the correct thing, that we're going to make a mistake with other starters because the person who said before nechtam doesn't talk about the writing part of the get, and it's kosher. So people won't focus that another person came along from nechtam. They'll look at this person before nechtam, and that's good enough. So all starters, same thing. Amalei said the same conversation, but now we're talking about according to this view. Abai said, "I have to go to you. Say for the you're telling me." That if both are shluchim, it's still not good. So the very end, it says if two people said before nechtam, not just one, and the nechtam possible, even in this case, you can tell me that you have two eidim on the ksiva. Are you going to tell me no? This is since the guy who talks about the chesima has to say before nechtam, he didn't do it. Therefore, we're going to make a mistake with the starters and it's possible. I mean, that's correct. So what is the machlekes then? What's the why is it here to say it's kosher then? Yeah. And this case over here, if one of the shluchim of the ksiva, one of the eidim by the ksiva is the one who's actually a shliach, makes it even worse. That means the person for the chesima is not even a shliach; will have no credibility. The chiddush is even if the person who does chesima is a shliach, so give him the credibility of two, and you have physically two eidim that fronted up and said before the nechtav, it's still not valid because people focus on the person who said that since the person who says the nechtav has to say for the nechtav to make it different all those status, and he didn't. Okay. What's the machlek is therefore the phone nechtam has to also talk about before the nechtav. Couldn't need to know about lishma, and he didn't do his job. Doesn't help us that two other agents did, but he didn't do his job. That means even if two shluchim were appointed, they still need to say the whole thing. Yeah, entire declaration. And that all that matters is that and one shliach and achsim is enough. The only reason why I say nechtav is to distinguish it from other starters. But over here, since you have two edim on the ksiva, it already distinguishes it from other starters. That's why we here says kasha. Lame of the rabbi of Rava tonight comes up from all this that the machlekes or rabbi of Rava, whether it's lishma as or just just kim chasim or chaisma is a machlekes of binach rabbi. The Gemara says no. Rava metaretz rishna kama v'Rabba. Yeah, Rava will say pashat. I hold it has nothing to do with that. I hold that the machlekes is like the first lashon. The attack two people brought it. Everyone holds that as kosher because you don't have to say anymore. Why? It's already different than all other stutters, and we're not worried. So, so my opinion could be everyone agrees you don't have to say, and the question only here is that are we geyser that people will make a mistake with other stutters or not, and that's the machlekes. Nothing, but they all agree with me in principle. However, Rabba Amallah, Kuli Alma, everyone agrees you need the Shema. No, so how come everyone holds you need the Shema? How come you is machshir? Remember, we learned before that there was a time when Ach Shalamdu, and then what happened was we still made a Gezerah Ach Shalamdu after they already became familiar with the dinim. We still made a Gezerah that we should maintain the same rules, but we did say in situations which are rare, we're not going to make a Gezerah. Like that person who became suddenly deaf and mute when he, after presented the star, cases which are rare, we're not going to talk about it. So the Gemara, and the machlekes is the Gezerah Shema Yachzer Hadalakul. That's coming. That goes to the machlekes. The Chachamim said, "Master, we worried that maybe Yachzer Hadalakul, and therefore they say you have to still say this. That even though two shluchim bring you not to say anymore, this person over here has to say." What do you call it? Has to say for a nectar. Masalah is even not worried, and if Rabbi says kosher, if Rabbi Yehuda says that la'ach shalamdu, you don't have to say anymore. So why only in the case of two people? Even in the case of one person said the funny nectar and one person said the funny nectar, he should argue and say, look, we don't really need lishma anymore. It's not important. In the seems in the Mishnah, he only argues in the case where two people said it for nechtav and one said nechtav. But you're telling me that you only need for nechtav do. So in case of one as well, one person for nechtav and one person for nechtav, you just say kosher. Ha'itman Allah and who said not? Didn't we learn? Omar Ula said Cholok Hoya Rabbi Yehuda Av B'Rishayna. Answer the Gemara that Ula said actually you're right. Rabbi Yehuda argues on both cases because in principle he holds that Acha Shalamdu you don't have to worry about Lishma anymore. So he's machshir in both cases. Okay, most of Rabbi Yisha has another question. You're telling me Rabbi Yehuda is arguing in the whole principle of Ach Shalamdu whether it says and he holds kosher in the first case. It says in the Braisa Yehuda machshir bezu v'loy b'achedis. The Braisa is very cryptic. It says that Yehuda is machshir in this case, but not in another case. Which case are we trying to negate? The case in the Mishnah before. He is machshir in the case where there were two people saying before the nechtam and one person saying before the nechtam, but he's not machshir because his name is not mentioned in the preceding case, which is one person said before the nechtam and one person before the nechtam. And the problem is that if Rabbi Yehuda's whole point is that he doesn't, that's not lishma, we don't really need to worry about lishma anymore. What's the chiluk first case in that case? My love, isn't it coming to exclude echle for the nechtam from a nechtam? But we're no, he's coming to exclude that if he did, he's coming to exclude a case where he said before nechtav, it didn't say before nechtam. Why would you think that was kosher? He's coming to as follows. Salgav thought, "Oh, you will let goes Rabbi Yehuda say, Shema Yachzad of the Kuli, not worried anymore. Deal me us in the Chlufi Bikim, started the Alma, is Beid Echanami Legazar." We would have thought that if 1/8 comes along, where he's coming to exclude a case where they're not shluch, they're coming to exclude a case where one shliach said before nechtam, and the other guy was not a shliach, the other guy was an aid, came along and said before nechtam. So you're saying why is that a problem? Because people will make a mistake and think, there's one shliach for nechtam or starts with it. I did also put for nechtam. but he's not a shlich, he's only 8, and therefore doesn't do anything. We would dismiss that and say, look, just like I'm not worried about the gzeda, I'm not worried about the gzeda that people are going to draw similarities between one and another. How far does he say I'm not worried? That's what we would have thought. Kamar Shalom, that no, that he is worried about. If the both shluchim is one thing, but if one of them is a shliach, the one on Chesiva, and the one on Chesiva is merely an aid, he is worried that people are going to draw similarities to other studies. Even I mean, the Shnai, we get exam, so before get exam, Bonu the Rabbi Yehuda is the machlekes of Rebbe Yehuda and Rabbanon. And what that we see clearly, the learning that the machlekes is that the two people brought, but not if one person brought. Everyone agrees that if one person brought, and the other one was just an aid, no good. Rabbi Cholash was sick. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi went to visit. It's a little bit hard to imagine Rabbi Yehuda went to Rabbi, as Rabbi Yehuda was Rabbi's teacher. It was Rabbi was not Rabbi's teacher, Rabbi's teacher. Rabbi learned by okay, maybe he did go to This is not Ammeir Rabbi Yehuda, yeah, who learned from. Well, maybe it's Rabbi. Rabbi might have been a bit younger. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi was younger. Ask to see how he's doing. While they were there, what else are you doing? Talking, learning. Ask them a question. What happens if two people were appointed as shluchim to bring a get from overseas? The very two Lashonis we had the Gemara. They asked him, if two people were appointed as shluchim, do they still need to say before and nechtem or not? He said, ain't tzrichin. You don't have to say. You don't have to say. Why? Like the first lashon, and why not? Because that's nothing. Because what happened? They would say they wouldn't even bring the shot. They would hide the shot, throw it away. They would come along and say the wife is divorced. Wouldn't we believe them? So now that they come along and say that this is the get the husband gave, they believe. They don't have to say before they nechtam. And especially if you learn that many kiyum, we have the two eight right here. Had they said that we saw that this woman was divorced, wouldn't they believe? So while they were talking, came along this Persian person. Took the candle away, the candlestick that was burning there, took it away off the table and took it away. He's one of the police or something. Omar. So he turned around, Rabbi Chana, and said to the Eibishter, Rachman Eibishter, Oy betoilach, oy betula. Either the Bar Esan, either take us in your shadow and take care of us, or put us in the shadow of the Romans of the Edom, rather than the Persians, because they were such a shame we can't take it. So you remember the Raimoi. You tell me the Romans are better. They destroyed the second base of English. What's so good about the Romans? They're better than the Persians. But Tony, in fact, we learned it says in Pasuk, Elakim Haven Darka, who Yadas Mekayma, that in Gemara can prove that the Romans were actually worse. Because who destroyed the first base of English? The Babylonians, not the Romans. And why not? Because the Romans were so ruthless. And the Eden in Babel actually lived very well. In fact, when Ezra came 70 years later and tried to entice him to go to Israel, nobody wanted to join. They were living a very comfortable life in Babel. So what are you telling me that the Babel is worse? Good to understand. The Romans, the Edom, were just not a strong nation in the time of the Bishop English, unless some of the first region. So what's the Gemara saying here? Unless we're saying David could have made Romans, just like he made the Persians stronger, he could have made the Romans stronger. So it says in Elakim Haven Dark, David shouldn't understand its ways. Who Yadas Mekayim, exactly the place where they didn't have to be imposed. He knew that the Eden could not withstand or endure the Gzeidas of the Romans, as Rashi says that they banned all the mitzvahs. We know that every Roman king came along and they banned, the Chedesh and Mila and Shabbos. They gave Eden a very, very difficult time. And their aim was to destroy Rahman Islam Klal Yisrael. But he goes to Babel. So Babel was actually, calm Lefi Erech compared to the Romans. Like Kasha, it's not a question. The nation Babel is a nation called Chavedim. Before the Chavedim came to Babel, then what do you call it? They were not so bad. But whole the boss, they were not so bad. They should put them in gave them Golus bubble rather than the Golus in Rome. But the boss of the also this is many years later. This is Abba Bachana. This is after Churban Hasheni, many years later. Once this nation of Chaverim came to bubble, they turned them into evil people.
This is all the argument between the elderly Yidden. Bears and the Grester anti-Semitic. The Lakrins, the Ukrainians, the Russians.
This is there's a Rashi in Chumash that talks about Makat Svardeya. And Rashi brings two opinions. Was it one Svardeya and it split into the millions, myriad of Svardeya, or no? Or one Svardeya yelled and they all came out from the woodwork. What's the Machlekes? So one of those one sort of love saying Machlekes is any cut like Germany Machshamam Zikr. What's the pshat? Is the pshat that every halacha is of Yaakov? You need one frog to bring it out in everybody, which already was there latent. Or the pshat is no, one frog came and changed everybody around. They were good people, but somehow or another, this one frog divided itself and turned everybody around. And that's exactly what the Gemara is saying here.
What's the nafkamina?
Nafkamina is, can you trust them while things are going well? Well, that's nafkamina.
He himself says the halacha b'yadu.
Okay, but that's not halacha. When things are going well, can you trust them or not? And here we're saying that the Chaverim came and turned the people of Parsa of the Persians around and turned them into that. Clearly, they weren't so bad, and we know the Eden lived very well, very comfortable bubble, and that's why they say Malachia Shara don't understand Aramish, because the Eden lived very, very well, and plus the Teda, they established Teda institutions, Yakim and all that. Yakim, they established all the Teda institutions, therefore the Teda flourished in bubble for over 1,000 years. Okay, continue tomorrow, Mitzvah 7:10.